Good evening and welcome to the MIT Executive MBA webinar on government and nonprofit sectors. My name is Beth Chartier. I am an admissions advisor for the program team and very excited for you to be here tonight with us. And hopefully this session will give you a clear sense of the program and also how you could fit into our community. And I am joined this evening by my colleagues, Amber and Tom. Would you like to say hello, Amber and Tom?
Sure. Thanks, Beth. Hi, everyone. Like Beth said, my name is Amber Ackerman. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Operations and Advising on the team. So I'm one of the class program advisors, and then I also oversee the budget for both the EMBA program and the Sloan Fellows program.
And hi, everyone. My name is Tom Little. I'm a marketing assistant with the team. My largest responsibility is probably running our social media as well as other different copy editing things and marketing activities. I'll be focused on technical aspects of tonight, and I'll be helping to answer any questions you put in the Q&A, and happy to see you all here.
Thank you. And you'll also hear from Ed and Kira and Kevin, our panelists, a little bit later. But for now, I wanted to give you a sense for what to expect. Tonight, we will walk through some information about the program schedule at a high level and the curriculum. And then we will turn it over to our panel for your questions, any questions that you have about the program and about their participation in it and the impact that the program has had on them and their careers. Welcome your questions. And you're welcome to start to submit them in the Q&A. And we'll talk about them. In a little bit. And for right now, we'll just do a quick overview of the program, and we'll start with what is foundational, which is the mission. So MIT, as you know, has evolved as one of a very preeminent leader in the school in the fields of science and technology. And the Institute today is comprised of 5 schools: architecture and planning, engineering, humanities, the Sloan School of Management since 1914, the School of Science, and also now the Stephen Schwarzman College of Computing, which kicked off in 2020. And the MIT is very mission driven, and it is foundational to everything that we do. And the mission of MIT is to advance knowledge and educate students in science, technology, and other areas of scholarship that will best serve the nation and the world and the 21st century. And Sloan plays a very important role in translating innovations in science and management into organizational capabilities. And the mission of MIT Sloan is to develop principled, innovative leaders who will improve the world and to generate ideas that will advance management practice. And the students in this program are uniquely positioned to really immediately put what they are learning into practice. And in terms of impact, MIT alumni have launched 32,000 companies, created 4.6 million jobs, generating $2 trillion worth of annual revenue. And among this community, there are 89 Nobel laureates. So the MIT Executive MBA at a glance. This is an MBA program that is specifically intended to build general management skills and provide a data-driven and scientific approach to management. It is a 20-month program, and we start 1 class per year each fall. There is an orientation weekend in September. Classes begin in October, and students come to campus 30 times over the 20 months. They come to campus on average of once every 3 weeks, although our engineers like to point out that mathematically that works out to every 2.6 weeks. I think that underscores the point. And 26 of those trips to campus are for weekend sessions. And our weekends are Fridays and Saturdays, where students are in class from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays with a hard stop at 4. We have a lot of students who are traveling in, hard stop at 4 on Saturdays so people can travel home. In addition to the Friday, Saturdays, there are 4 modules that are 1 week long. The program begins and ends with 2 of those executive modules, which fall about once every 6 months. Each of those weeks is actually a class in and of itself. There is a 5th week in the schedule that's embedded in a 4-month action learning lab, where you might not be coming to campus that week, you might be traveling internationally. And then because it is a compressed schedule, there is a need for students to be doing some work when they're not on campus. And you can anticipate on average of about 15 hours a week for project work and study on top of time that you're spending in the classroom. And I'd like to introduce you to the class of 2023, at least statistically, which is very similar to the class profiles of the classes that have preceded it. The class of 2023 is comprised of 126 global executives. 90% of them were director level or above at the point that they matriculated, with an average age of 41 and 17 years of work experience on average, making it one of the most senior, if not the most senior, executive MBA cohort in North America. 33% of this class are women, which is always a number we'd like to see higher. 67% are non-local, meaning they're traveling in from outside of Massachusetts, having a significant commute. 50% are of international origin, although primarily based in the US now, and we'll call it about 10% are traveling in internationally each year. 14% of this class were underrepresented minorities. 60% hold advanced degrees, previous master's degrees, law degrees, MDs, JDs, PhDs. The other 40% have undergraduate degrees, and we do have space, it seems, in each class for some leaders who have been extraordinarily successful without an advanced degree. That might require a little bit of pre-work and in terms of taking calculus and statistics if they haven't, but it certainly is doable. These percentages do fluctuate somewhat, except for this one. 100% of the students in the program are employed. This program is specifically intended for working professionals. It's intended for the students to be applying what they're learning in the classroom and then coming back and talking about it and doing it over again. So this 100% of the students in the program are employed full-time. So at this point, I'm going to pause and hand the microphone to Amber to talk a little bit about the curriculum.
Thank you so much, Beth. And again, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. All right, so we'll dive into some of the EMBA curriculum now. Each weekend session can be broken down into analytical frameworks and business essentials. These analytical frameworks are techniques for kind of analyzing the business challenges and opportunities, and you'll find this in classes like organizational processes and system dynamics. Business essentials are the functional expertise courses that are important to general managers, and it's the classes you might associate with the C-suite, so finance or marketing. The integrative modules are those 4-week-long sessions that Beth mentioned earlier. And so these modules provide an immersive experience that tie together multiple business frameworks and business essentials. The first module that you'll have when you come to campus, your first October, is Leadership and Integrative Management, LIM. And this focuses on the perspective a general manager takes when responding in a complex and rapidly changing global marketplace. This week used to be affectionately known as Walmart Week because that was the company that was often referenced and studied. And now we've transitioned a bit into Amazon, since that is the Walmart of the future. Then in March, you will have Innovation-Driven Entrepreneurial Advantage, or IDEA Week. We love acronyms here, and IDEA Week, I think, was created just to be able to spell out idea with those words. But the module, like the name, is focused on innovation and entrepreneurship. In your second October, you'll have LGC, Leading in a Global Context, which focuses on macroeconomics and global markets. The program then wraps with Leading with Impact, LWI, which is where students work with local nonprofits, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. Action Learning, which was OLAB and Global Labs that Beth mentioned, got its start in the 1960s at MIT. And OLAB is the course where you will focus on solving a problem within your own organization. And then Global Labs, with that international trip component, is where you'll have the opportunity to solve a project for an international host company in kind of a consulting role. Electives are opportunities to take classes outside of the EMBA core curriculum, and this comes during your first and second January, as well as when you're alums each year, and then also chances for electives in your second and final spring. So focusing on a few specific curriculum highlights that kind of tie into the government and nonprofit sector, we'll start with operations management, which can focus on global operations strategies and that efficiency and effectiveness of process. There has been a particular focus on the healthcare environment, and during the height of the pandemic, the faculty for this course actually worked with the state of Massachusetts in helping to set the policies for controlling and reopening the state. Leading in a global context is that LGC, global market, and macroeconomics module I mentioned, and it has an emphasis on different financial crises, and it is taught by central bankers, policymakers, and government advisors. OLAB, that project where you're going to take a deep dive into fixing an issue within your own company, is all about leading change. These projects have spanned procurement, low-income housing, creating an innovation lab, but mostly it's about improving efficiency and productivity in your organization. So Leading with Impact is this capstone module that completes your 20 months in the program. This module is designed to support your efforts and synthesize and integrate all your learnings, and it kind of connects you to what you hold the values most deep. And it's with local nonprofits in Boston. And we use Building Impact as a company that sources the projects for us. And they span a wide variety of topics, including hospitality homes, inner city weightlifting, Loving Spoonfuls, and the Perkins School for the Blind. The class of 2023 will have LWI in the middle of May. And we currently have 20 projects sourced for them to match and work on. So two of the faculty that teach LWI are Bridget and Nelson. Bridget is an alum of the EMBA class of 2013, and she currently sits as CEO of Building Impact. In addition to teaching LWI to the EMBAs, she also teaches Orgs Lab to the other Sloan students in collaboration with Nelson. Nelson Repenning was actually the EMBA's founding faculty director, and he currently sits as Associate Dean of Leadership and Special Projects and is the faculty director of the MIT Leadership Center. We are super lucky that even though he's moved on to a different role, Nelson still teaches LWI for us, as well as OLAB and parts of System Dynamics. In each class, kind of how Beth mentioned, the profile looks the same. We will always have representation from different government and nonprofit companies and communities. And so we have folks from the US Army, from the Human Rights First. We've had different leaders from Oxfam, the Boys and Girls Club, as well as various branches of the military and divisions and regulators of the government. All right, you have heard me talk enough, and so now we can get to what I think is the best part of the evening, and hopefully why you're all here, is to hear from our student and alumni panel. So if you would like to go ahead and start using that Q&A function and get those question-ins for our panelists, I'm going to ask everyone to unmute on the panel and introduce yourself and what you do for work. And so we will start with Kira, we'll go to Ed, and then to Kevin, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kira Jarrett, class of 23, and I am the CEO of the DC Bar Foundation. I've been there for 9 years. We're focused on increasing access to justice within the District of Columbia, and I'm happy to answer any questions about philanthropy, nonprofit, travel, what have you. So I feel like it's all still very fresh for me.
Thanks, Kira.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Padula. I serve as Chief Risk Officer at the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. My role there, I'm focused on helping the agency really just think about what are our most important top risks, whether they're internal or external, that may impact our mission, protecting investors and getting that to management so we can be proactive and try to take, or put in place the right things to make sure that that stuff doesn't occur, or at least we try to minimize it. And so, like I said, class of 22, happy to answer your questions, and thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ed.
Hey, everybody. My name is Kevin Ripke. I'm from the class of 2020. I work for the U.S. Soybean Export Council. We're a nonprofit that's dedicated at expanding market access and developing foreign markets for U.S. soy abroad. My territory is South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, and I currently live and reside in Dubai.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. All right, so looking into the Q&A first, we have a question from Michael, and it is, can you discuss the benefits of an executive MBA versus an MPA in the public sector? Would anyone like to take that first question?
Yeah, I could add a little bit. I think MPA, I get what is that? I think that's public administration, right? I think my perspective is, although the government is not really a business, so to speak, and we really, especially at CFTC, we implement policy. There's still a lot from the program that I've been able to take to kind of, especially doing my job, to think about from like an executive level, asking the right questions, challenging management, bringing different ideas to try to improve our processes, being more efficient, cost reductions, things like that. So I think there's a lot of value from, like a business management perspective, that we can enhance the policy-making arm of the CFTC.
Thanks, Ed. Kevin or Kira, did you have anything?
Yeah. I think Ed covered the MPA question pretty well, but also, one of the other interesting topics is looking at this from a perspective of a management school versus maybe say a business school. And that's, I think, where MIT Sloan really sets itself out apart, because I'm sure as many of you on the call are also looking at, quote unquote, traditional business schools versus management schools. And it's really one of the things that set me apart for wanting to go to MIT, because I felt like that management systems approach really was a bit more encapsulating as to the value add that I could create for my organization in the nonprofit sector. So one thing I think that's of particular importance, especially for the nonprofit and government, slanted person, is really taking on that management approach that MIT Sloan can provide.
Great, Kevin, you kind of segued into another question, and it can be why the MIT Sloan Executive MBA versus those other business schools that you mentioned. So I feel like your answer was pretty complete, but is there anything additionally to add of why Sloan?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it sounds a bit cliche, but I really think that, 89 Nobel laureates, Beth mentioned at the top of the hour. I mean, as far as MIT as an institution, I mean, it stands itself up. It stands alone on a pedestal by itself. But the people is really, I think, what sets MIT Sloan apart in terms of the staff, the faculty. Everyone's so supportive and helpful. I mean, some of the professors are literally world-class, world-renowned experts, and you'll have the opportunity to interact with them on a daily basis throughout your time in the EMBA program. And it's really humbling to be able to engage with some of these people during your time, but also then, after you graduate and step away. For example, I've contacted some of my professors and had them act as consultants and contractors for our organization, because some of the things that have been spoken about in class have really resonated, and I think it's a great relationship to evolve and develop over the long run as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Kira, you're kind of in the thick of it right now. What made you choose MIT Sloan over some of the other options?
It was that very first conversation with Beth Chartier that got me. But I think it was actually a combination of the conversation with Beth, checking out the website, and then also the opportunity to experience 2 classes before applying. So for me, that made the difference. So I was able to take a class with Georgia on data models and decisions. And I actually didn't know when I spoke with Beth that I would get a homework assignment before the day-long class. And I was like, wait a minute, I thought this was just an open house, but it was a very realistic way of getting a sense of what the experience would be like. And then we also had a class with OP.
Roberto Fernandez?
Yes. And so I think that was great insight. And then I think since being here, just realizing how unique MIT is with respect to the systems dynamics course, which I knew nothing about before I got here, but has been incredible in terms of how I approach my work. And then also the focus on entrepreneurship. So the opportunity to take electives, particularly in January with certain professors, just to really dig deep on what the steps are to entrepreneurship if you haven't done it, and then the exposure to MIT alums in almost all these classes with folks who have created incredible organizations like Dropbox and HubSpot and so many others.
Great,
So
thanks.
I just want to interject here that my first conversation with Kira's first conversation with me, I'm an admissions advisor, and I have 2 colleagues, Deborah and Will, and we are available to talk with you if you are interested in exploring and having an informal conversation and get your specific questions answered about your unique situations. We're happy to talk with you. And if you all have an admissions advisor, and if you're wondering who that is, it's the person who's emailing you a lot. I also wanted to answer the question from Zuhair about test scores and about scholarship opportunities or funding. So we do not require any test scores, no GMATs, no GREs, no TOEFL, nothing like that. We are looking for evidence that a candidate will be able to handle the rigor and the math. And so we are looking for classes in calculus and statistics. But if someone has a gap, it doesn't preclude you from applying, but it might require a little bit of pre-work in terms of taking that class or classes ahead of time. And we can make some suggestions for you if that's the case. And then we do have some fellowship funding available for each class. Each class, about 10% of the incoming class will receive a fellowship award from the program. Those fellowships range from $10 to $40,000. There are some additional fellowships and scholarships through the Office of Graduate Education as well. And again, can share more information if you're interested, so email us.
And if people have questions about that math requirement, I'm happy to talk about that.
Thanks, Kira. We appreciate that. I'm going to take the question now from Carrie, and so we'll start with Ed. Can you elaborate on what you feel you gained from completing an MBA while already in your current position? Has it changed how you managed, and how?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was actually looking at that question, Carrie and James. I saw yours as well, so I'll try to touch on it. I think it really helped. So to give context too, like on why I did the program was more around the science of management, the science of decision making, to be better at, because I'm fully guilty of this stuff, those intuition-based decisions, and I've seen that stuff in many organizations, not only in the government but also in the private sector. And so I really wanted to bring more rigor to the work that I was doing, and I felt that going through the program. Interestingly, as I transitioned over to CFTC, it really helped me from that perspective, because I was building a risk program specifically, but I was able to try to help with additional value with some of the stakeholders and my peers by bringing in some of the I wouldn't say all the frameworks, but more of like the thought process of like, how do we do this? How do we implement? How do we think about processes a little bit differently? And so there's stuff that Nelson Repenning's class, which is on organizations lab, which is like problem solving and root cause analysis, bringing that stuff into trying to do deep dives to learn like, why is this really occurring and what can we truly do to try to fix it at its root so this doesn't keep happening. So I would say that it helped me from that perspective, more at the kind of the executive level. The managing, I would say it just gave me some different tools, different things to think about, and a lot of it too was just talking to my classmates. What are they doing? What's working? What tools are they using? Like as an example, like Kanban boards, Trello, different applications for like tracking, monitoring, things like that. What's the other one I said? What's that? OKRs. I'm looking at my book over here. We actually do use some of that stuff here at CFTC. So I was able to bring that from the program that I wouldn't have picked up, I don't think, anywhere else. And so I felt like it was really beneficial from that perspective. And then James, your question about the coalition building, totally agree. I experienced that here. There's not as much of that top-down direction. You kind of have to lead from the middle. But I think there's opportunity to say, look, I want to partner with you. Here's some stuff that I think could help you. From like like some of the different frameworks that you'll learn, or doing some of the different assessments that you might pick up in the OP class, like around processes, the problem solving, some of the analytics and the data models and decisions. I think that I was able to bring some of that to help with our HR team here on metrics around like exiting people that are exiting the federal government, what's driving some of that, some stuff around succession planning metrics. So, I think hopefully that it's helped here, and hopefully that answers some of your questions.
Thanks, Ed. Kira, I see you nodding along to all of that. Do you have your own experiences to add?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this. I think for me, it has really helped provide a framework. Well, I think I've learned a bit about problem recognition. So I sort of had a gut about certain things that weren't going well, but wasn't able to articulate or really define them the way that I wanted to. And I feel like through the program, I've learned different ways of recognizing problems. And so system dynamics is coming up for me again, in terms of what sticks with me as a capabilities trap. And I had been in this capabilities trap probably for about 2 or 3 iterations of my team and couldn't figure out what the problem was. And I definitely had a light bulb moment in that class. And I was like, I know exactly what I'm doing wrong. And so then I had a framework, I had a way to articulate it and talk about it and communicate with both my board and my team about what the problem was, and then how I was going to approach it. And so it gave me the language and the framework, not just for sort of staffing issues, but my organization has grown somewhat like a startup in the past 9 years that I've been there. So my budget has grown by 8, my team has grown by 4. And I knew it was hard, but now I know why it was hard. Like I know what all those challenges were, and I know and I'm able to communicate about those challenges in a way that people outside of my sector can understand. And I think that's the question about how do you think the EMBA or the degree prepared you to lead a nonprofit? That's been really incredible for me, because I don't think, first of all, that a lot of people understand that running a nonprofit is running a business. And so I think when you're able to talk about it like it's a business, particularly as you're approaching donors or you're pursuing board members or you're looking for other stakeholders to serve in partnership with you, all of those learnings from the program have translated, and I've gotten results from them. So, I mean, I could talk probably for hours about that one, but definitely sort of the running of the business, the management of a team, even things like we're trying to build a new system in DC to make it easier for people to get legal help. And it involves sort of sitting on top of all the intake processes that legal aid organizations have now. And I was in the operations management class, which I thought it felt like it would have nothing to do with what I do. And then I had one of those light bulb moments where I thought, I need to do a capacity analysis. And I never would have even have known about something like that to figure out, how do I properly staff this new thing that's never been done before? So how would we initially approach staffing it? And then what data will we need to analyze it to figure out how to pivot if the initial results are wildly different?
Thank you.
Kira.
Okay, Michelle has a question here, which is about time and energy, I think. What do you think with such a senior class that do you think the engagement might wane at times? Overall, do you find everyone focused, consistent, and engaged? And I think, how are you managing the time commitment? I think,
I think
go
that
ahead.
the time commitment is massive. I will say that. And so I think that part of it is pure organization. So I think the program is very good about letting you know exactly what days you need to be in Boston, exactly how to make your hotel reservations. So I think there's sort of that time commitment, which is just the logistics of it, which I think I underestimated. And then there's the coursework part of it, which is, I think when you get through 2 weekends and the professor says, okay, this is class 7, then you realize how quickly the program is moving. So there's sort of the homework piece of it, but then there's the relationship piece of it, which I think is equally as important. So I typically come in on a Thursday, and our class often has social something or other happening on Thursday. It could be just dinner. It could be meeting on the 2nd floor of the Marriott or the 7th floor of the Kindle. But the social piece of it's really important. And so you have to set aside the time for that. And I do think the school is very good about saying, if you have a choice between a homework assignment and connecting with a classmate, definitely connect with the classmate. And that's been really important both here in Boston, which is where I am now, and then also at home, or even when people travel. Like I'm seeing people travel all over the world and they're connecting with classmates outside of the program, which I think is exactly how it should be. But it does require saying no to quite a few things that you probably would have said yes to. But it's just a 20-month break.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
If I could just add in one little thing here, Amber. I mean,
Of course,
credit
Todd.
to you guys. Credit to you guys. You guys do a very good job of illustrating what we kind of colloquially known as the stress curve. And the stress curve is a very accurate representation of not only the stress, but I think then the workload therein. And so, it's just a good reminder to, if those of you that have families, to kind of share that with your families and make sure that they're aware, like, hey, for the next 8 weeks, my workload's gonna be significantly increased than what maybe has previously been. So I might be more focused on DMD and the analytics part here, the finance part here for the next couple of months. So just be prepared. But the workload is intense, but it does vary throughout the course of the program. But it is very important to bring your family and have open communication with them so that they understand the rigors. But also, again, credit to MIT, they also have some events with family as well, so that you can actually bring them into the program. My parents actually sat in on a course that they still rave about, and they still talk to me about it. It was only 45 minutes, but for them it was life-changing. So family is definitely a big factor here for sure.
Yes, Kira's mom stole the show at Family Weekend this year.
So I think just to add context around that, we have events to help students to continue to engage their support systems. We have a significant others weekend, the first weekend in the fall. We have a family weekend, and it's generally the hottest weekend of the summer in July, where people can bring up to 10 people that they consider to be family. They're not in class with you, but we have an agenda all for them, and we make sure they have a lot of good, have a great time, and it ends with a huge barbecue under a tent with tons of activities for the kids. And we have a day for bosses. Bosses get a day, not a weekend. They're not quite as much of a captive audience as families.
That's right. Michelle has a really great question, and I want to start with Kevin first, being the furthest out since graduation. She said that a few of you mentioned loving the people factor. How does the program support class bonding or team building? And considering other things you loved about the program, what would you say is a must to dive into, and what do you wish you had done differently?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Great questions here, Michelle. And I'm actually going to tie in a question from Jessica as well. What was the experience like representing a nonprofit sector? Because I think my answer is a bit similar across the sector. So, you know, MIT is an intimidating place. I'm not going to lie. You know, when you step in on campus, being from the nonprofit, you can't help but have a sense of a bit of an imposter syndrome. Like, gosh, do I belong here? Like, that guy works for Google. That guy works for Facebook. She's a founder of a unicorn. You know, and you look around. And it's like, God, what on earth could I possibly relate to? I grew up on a farm in central Iowa. Like, what on earth could I possibly relate to these people with? But MIT does such a great job of like Kira mentioned, of fostering and facilitating these social aspects that it really is incredible to build these lifelong friends from people that you wouldn't normally have had the opportunity to meet or had the experience to meet. And so I think that, you know, to put a bow on that, Beth and the admissions team knows what they're doing. They have this down to a science. And so I can say with 100% assurity, even though you may not think so, if you join the program, you belong there. And if you belong there, if you actually, you know, embark upon this journey, jump in head first into absolutely everything you can. Bring your boss on boss's weekend, bring your family, bring your significant other, go to the social functions. You know, for me, I was commuting from abroad, so it was a little bit challenging for me logistically to do everything. But again, you know, it's a short 2 years. It goes by super fast. Get involved in as much stuff as you possibly can. That'd be my advice.
You know, I can add to that too. In terms of formal activities beyond the significant others weekend, the family weekend, and the boss weekend, there are activities like putt-putt. We did putt-putt last week. We've done axe throwing. We've gone to the baseball game. Ed and I met at sort of micro dinners or micro activities across classes, which was great because we're not always here at the same time. So there are sort of activities like that I think are really important to go to. And I think I've gone to every single one of them, no regrets. And then my class is also organized informally dinners. And so we have a Google spreadsheet where someone makes a reservation for 4 or 10 people and just says, you know, I've got a reservation at this place at this time, and people can sign up. And that's been a great informal way for people to get to know one another. So you can be very strategic with that and sign up for dinners with people that you haven't been in class with because you're in 2 different sections. You haven't hung out with at some social event. So I think they're both formal and informal, and you just have to make the space for it. Like, you just have to commit to it because you will be tired, but it's worth it. It's a lot of late nights.
Thank you. I have an important question from Raheel about the time commitment with such busy work schedules and trying to have a healthy work-life balance. How do you manage the amount of travel? Who would like to take that? I think you all had commutes.
I'll go.
Yeah.
Do you want to go, Kevin?
No, please go ahead.
For me, I'm lucky because I'm traveling from DC, and so there are quite a few flights, and it's only about an hour. I found that what worked well for me was to get in pretty early on Thursday. So not so much that I'm getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, but I would take a flight that would get me in around lunchtime, which was great for getting settled. So when I first started, I wasn't getting in until like 4 or 5, but the day is still shot. So I think get in as early as you can on Thursday, because that gives you a chance to do homework, catch up with classmates, just kind of regroup. And then classes are 8:30 to 4 Friday and Saturday, and I often took a 5 or a 6 or 7:30 sometimes flight back home because I like to be home on Sunday. A lot of people stay over Saturday night number one, because there aren't flights for them to wherever they're flying, but then they also want the additional time with classmates. And then I think a lot of people need that time to decompress before they get home, and they really need to be present for family. But I think it takes a lot of planning just to kind of get your schedule together and then sort of stick to it.
Yeah, and exactly. I think it does take a lot of planning. I think you'll build some institutional kind of memory or knowledge pretty quickly, because the schedule is quite structured and well thought out in advance, and the 4 o'clock stops are hard stops, so you can book flights as a result. One thing I would add to what Kira mentioned is make sure that you're being very open and honest and transparent with your management, with your bosses and supervisors, and to do so, in order to build that time for socialization and for the entire experience, so you don't feel like you're under stress, that you have to sneak away from the office, or you have to check out early, or the program has enough involvement, and the stress curve is what it is. You don't need the added stress of trying to seem like the commute aspect is adding to stress. So make sure that your supervisors are completely comfortable with this, and if they're not, then honestly a commuting program like this is probably not for you. Make sure that your supervisors are on board with it. In my case, to be quite honest, I think mine was probably a bit reluctant at first, but then very quickly, and I mean very quickly, within months, my management saw a marked improvement in the way I think and the way I approach things. Again, problem recognition, that they became very, very supportive and flipped their mentality quite quickly.
Thanks for that, Kevin. So as we're being mindful of time and the session, I would ask each of you to think about a piece of advice that you would give to those prospective folks on this call. And so we will start with Ed.
Thanks for giving me such a long runway to think about that.
You're welcome.
I think what I could have done better, and I guess thinking about this was, what did I really want to get out of this? So think about that as you're coming in. Like, what do you truly want to get out of the program? Where do you see your career going? What do you want to do with what you're going to learn? And are you in a place where you can fully use it all? And that doesn't, I'm in the federal government, so things are slower. It's harder to implement on the federal side, and not because they're not thoughtful. There's processes in place that have to be there. I mean, there's certain things that we need to do from a taxpayer perspective, regulatory perspective, to do it a certain way. So there's not always an opportunity to be disruptive, right, or innovative in certain areas. So you have to kind of think about that and what you're learning from some of the classes where you can apply it. But at the same time, no matter where you go, there's always going to be some of those challenges. This is not just simply on a federal side or a government side. So think about what you're trying to get out of this. And I think, for me, what I ultimately, at the end of it, it just made me much better at being more of a leader manager. You get a lot of different repetitions from all of the different classes, all of your classmates to think differently, ask good questions. And that's what it truly has helped me the most. It's just being able to catch stuff in the moment, ask follow-up, be confident that I don't have to know everything. I don't know how to calculate every single statistical formula out there, but I do have enough to know, I heard that before, let me go reference it. Or at least if someone says something to me, I know generally like what they're talking about, and I can hang in some of those conversations where I couldn't do it before. So I would say from that perspective, it's been just, hugely beneficial and very transformative, both personally and professionally.
Great. Thank you, Ed. Kevin, piece of advice.
So one of the very first things that we did was the beer game. I hope you guys still do this. It was one of the most enlightening exercises of the entire experience that was taught by Nelson, who you referred to earlier. And he,
Yes, we still do that.
Yeah, good. And he alluded to this concept of a growth mindset, and it's something that I hadn't heard of before then, but it stuck with me and resonated with me so long. Again, there's so many type A personalities that you'll be experienced with in the cohort, and there's going to be this natural kind of tendency for competition and to be the best and the brightest and the est of this or the est of that, but just really focusing on having a growth mindset and taking as much of the program in as you possibly can without being overwhelmed, because there's so much. Think of it like a buffet, and you're not going to eat everything on the buffet, but as long as you get little bites here and you sample this and you pick things up here, you're going to come out so much better than what you came in. But you have to focus on having that growth mindset in order to tackle that.
Thanks, Kevin. And Kira, to you, with just a few months left in the program, what do you think?
Two quick pieces. One is to research what is happening at MIT in your field or in your area of interest so that you can take advantage of that while you're here. I learned maybe midway through how much was happening outside of school that I could plug into. And the second piece of advice is believe that it's doable. Just gotta believe.
What a perfect note to end on. I would like to thank all the panelists, Kira, Ed, Kevin, you were wonderful. And so thank you again for participating, and thanks to everyone for all your great questions. And we have the application out and it is live. So we are approaching the round 3 deadline on March 9th. We have round 4 closing on April 6th, and then the final deadline on May 4th. All right, so we have some upcoming virtual as well as in-person events. We have the Women in the MIT Executive MBA webinar on Thursday, March 9th. We have a business analytics panel on the 14th. We will be in Washington, D.C. on March 20th for an in-person information session. We'll be hosting a virtual faculty masterclass on April 4th. Beth and her admissions advisor colleagues will be on a chat on April 6th, and we have a sustainability panel coming up around Earth Day on April 18th. All right, so in closing, and after hearing all of your thoughtful questions, I would just like to end by saying, if you want to challenge yourself and challenge convention, if you're looking to broaden your perspective as well as your network, and if you want to have an impact on your company, your industry, and the world, then we cannot wait to hear from you. Thank you all again for attending. Good night.